I am the Chief of Staff with Sunbird Storage and Bluebird Storage Canada. And I am here with Jason Coonan, our CEO. And also today, as a special guest, we have Mark Hole Joaquin from Shelter Movers Canada. So, welcome, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. It's good to see you again. How's
Likewise.
Great to
life
have you,
treating you?
Mark.
Hi, Jason. Yeah, it's great to be on the show, and it's been too long. I know that we work closely with Jason on the day to day and his team in all of our locations, but it's great to be on the show.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for joining us. So I wanted to introduce Mark just really quick, give a little bit of his backstory. He is a passionate social justice leader. So Mark founded Shelter Movers. He was on vacation with his daughter. He noticed a need and he stepped up to the plate. So I'm really proud of you for doing that, Mark. Most people just look the other way or think it's not my problem, but you stepped up to the plate and said there is a need to help those who are fleeing from domestic violence and abuse. So he started Shelter Movers in Canada. And it fills a critical gap in the country's social safety net, moving thousands of survivors and children each year to safety. The organization is currently has thousands of volunteers now and in 9 major cities. Is that correct, or have you expanded?
We've expanded. We're operating in 14 cities now in Canada. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Nice.
Great job.
Yeah.
Great job. So yeah, let's kick it off and we want to find out more about Shelter Movers and all the exciting new updates and what you're doing. And then you have a big event coming up that we will touch on at the end. So tell us about Shelter Movers and all that you're doing.
Thanks, Teeny. Yeah. So Shelter Movers is it's really a story of hope. It's something that, as you mentioned, I started when I was on leave with our daughter, and I didn't know what it was going to become, but I did know that I needed to find a way to be useful to women and children who are experiencing abuse. I know that, you've got police and you've got these shelters and all these services that are there to help survivors, but what I realized is that when she needs to leave, in that critical moment where her life is in danger or the kids are in danger, it's really difficult and expensive and logistically complicated to gather up her belongings and go. And so what we found is that most survivors in Canada and probably around the world really face the prospect of losing everything they own when they leave the abuser. And that can start a cycle of poverty. They can start a cycle where she leaves with the children and stays away for a few months, but then money runs out, or he's just pressuring her so much that she really feels that she has no choice and she goes back. And in Canada, survivors of abuse go back to their partners on average 6 times. And so you can imagine that cycle of violence, and then you need to get out and you run away, you stay maybe in an emergency shelter for a month or two, and then you're back in that home because he apologized and he's going to change, and then he says everything he can to get the woman to come back, and she returns. But what if the survivor, when she decides to leave, could leave on her terms? What if she could leave with the belongings that are hers in the house, in a safe way, in a dignified way, on her terms with her and her kids? And so that really inspired the idea for Shelter Movers. And so I got permission from my wife to put some money aside and rent a truck. And I contacted the local shelter and said, please check me out. I do whatever background check you need, and if it's useful, I can go and help these women move out. And so that was 9 years ago, almost a decade ago, in Toronto, Canada. And we tested this over and over and over again. I did hundreds of moves. I was back to work at that point after my leave with my daughter, going to work 9 to 5, and then putting the kids to bed around 8 o'clock, and then jumping in this truck and kind of driving out in the night with volunteers. So over that time, we've grown significantly. As I mentioned, we're in 14 cities, major cities now, across the country. We move almost 200 families a month now across those locations. And on our 10th anniversary in April 2026, we're approaching now our 10,000th move. So about 20,000 women and children. And so here we are with this idea that seems to have really taken hold across Canada, and it's been a real privilege. And I get to work with great people like you and the Bluebird team, because we do need business partners all across the storage industry to provide us with donated or discounted storage that we use while the woman is in shelter. We can put her stuff in a safe place, and so that's a critical component of our service.
That's
It's a great
wonderful.
story.
So,
Thanks.
Jason, how
Yeah.
did you get connected with Mark?
I was contacted. I always lose track of time. I feel like it was maybe 4 years ago, Mark, and I was contacted by some of his board members. They were reaching out to people that they knew, and one of their mutual friends, she was a real estate broker. She reached out to us and asked if we could help. At the time, we had about 10 storage facilities in the Toronto area. So I learned a little bit about what they were doing and set up a call with Mark and his team to really learn more about how it worked. And I felt like there was no way that we couldn't help. We had incredible resources and exactly what they needed to help their clients. So for us, it was a very natural fit. We're able to store their clients' belongings safely and securely while they get back on their feet. And it's been a great partnership ever since. The last 4 years, we've grown together from Toronto across the country. Both organizations.
So now Bluebird Self-Storage got involved because of you. And I know that, we have the Bluebird Difference and Bluebird Cares program. So can you explain a little bit more, Jason, about that program and how we partner with shelter movers? Is it only donating storage units, or how much are we involved with shelter movers, and do we work with other nonprofits?
Yeah, that's a good question. A big part of what we do, of course, is not just rent the storage units, but try and find ways to use our resources to help the communities that we're in, both in Canada as well as in the US. So last time I checked, I know when we talked to Mark, Shelter Movers was our largest nonprofit that we support. I believe we support them with close to 100 storage units across Canada. And then we have another, probably 100 units for various other nonprofits. We'll really try to help almost any nonprofit that comes to us with space needs, because we feel like if we can reduce their budget that goes towards the storage, then they can use that for other expenses to help more of their clients. So it really goes a long way. And for us, it's been relatively easy to find them space, especially as we've been growing. So we would encourage other storage operators to do the same thing. But yeah, I would say I think we're involved with something like 60 or 70 nonprofits at last count. So it's definitely a growing number, and we're happy to do that. So hopefully we can continue to grow to provide more support to these communities.
Absolutely. And I just read a comment on a nightly report from one of our managers who was saying that how much she loves working for our company because of the heart behind it and all that we do for nonprofits. And just her writing that really blessed me as well. So yes, thank you. Thank you for setting that, creating that culture and allowing it to thrive. So I'm going to jump back to Mark for a second, and let's talk about your volunteer base. So you can't do this without volunteers. So how do you get your volunteers? What do you look for in volunteers, and how can people get involved?
Yeah, it is a volunteer powered organization. We have a small staff team in each city to manage them, but we've got about 1,000 volunteers actively today in our different cities. It's unique, because on the issue of violence against women in Canada, it can be difficult for men to find a role in showing their allyship and showing that they don't find it acceptable any more than anyone else does. But to actually do something about it is not as obvious as you might think. And when I started Shelter Movers, I thought maybe I should be volunteering in a women's shelter or helping out some way. And it just wasn't appropriate. It wasn't the right place for a guy to be, and understandably so. And so we really view Shelter Movers as a vehicle for everybody, but in particular for guys to be able to show what they stand for. And so we've got recruitment drives that go out in every city. We go to farmers markets. We do presentations to our corporate partners. Obviously, with Bluebird, we've been to many of your locations. We've talked about what we do. because employees like to get involved, and they like to present themselves not just in their employment capacity, but as regular citizens who care about their community. And they like the tie between Shelter Movers and Bluebird because of everything you said. And so our volunteer experience is a little bit different than the average one. So this is not like showing up at a soup kitchen or a library or something at a specific hour every week to do the same thing over and over. And that's still very valuable, and I don't want to discount that. But Shelter Movers is a little bit different. We get what we have relationships with all these different women's shelters and hospitals and women's centers and health centers who might receive survivors who might get a call from Mary, and Mary says, "I got to go, and he's threatened my life. He's hurt the dog, and he's going to hurt the kids next or something. He's threatened us, and we need to go right now. I need to go tomorrow." And so they will refer the client to Shelter Movers, and then we will do an assessment of the kind of risk that she's facing. And depending on how serious the situation is, we might have to involve police or our own private security. But most importantly, we want to have the right volunteers to join that move. And so we'll put out what we call a call to action. So an email every few days to our volunteer base in a particular city and say, there's a high risk move coming up in 2 days, or there's a low risk move. She's been in a shelter for a year now. The guy's out of the picture. She's ready to move out to her new place. It's kind of the happy ending of this journey for her. And so our volunteers will be invited to go depending on their comfort level and their tolerance for the risk. And so the training is pretty straightforward. We have people sign up at sheltermovers.com, and we give them a call. We have a 15-minute conversation just to get to know them a little bit. And then we do an orientation. So it's about an hour and a half, 2-hour orientation where we talk about how we work and our philosophy of service. The people talk about Shelter Movers being the hero and rescuing survivors. We don't see it that way at all. The only person's rescuing themselves is the survivor. The survivor is the hero of the story. And we get to be with her on that very short period of often a very long journey. And so our volunteers are really trained to remember that they're the second in command, that she's in the first in command, and we listen to her and we wait for her direction. And so in the orientation, we look for how people talk about that and make sure that they're expressing the right kind of philosophy. We do safety checks, so we do police record checks and that whole bit. Sometimes we'll do social media checks on our volunteers to make sure that the stuff that they're putting out there is in line with our values. And then we invite them to do a move. And we've got volunteers who do a move every 6 months, and we've got volunteers who do a move every 2 days, because this is the right time in their life to give their full effort. And we do have a point system, and I was looking at it earlier, a point system at Shelter Movers where you get a score for a number of moves you do. And I'm really truly astonished at some of our volunteers. I mean, they're coming up on 1,000 moves. I mean, to have affected, most of our clients are women between 25 and 55. Most of them have at least one child, usually under the age of 8. So we estimate about 2 people per move that we're serving. And for a regular person, I mean, I'm not an expert in this field either. I came to this kind of out of left wing as well, out of left field. And to think that some of our volunteers have moved literally thousands of women and children and give them a new shot at life is very special. And I think very fulfilling for those people. And they meet those clients and they talk with them. And that personal connection with somebody that you wouldn't otherwise get to know is a very special experience. I don't want to say addictive, but you get so excited by it. You're ramped up for the next one because you want to see what else you can do for somebody who you may never have otherwise met.
Yeah, it's remarkable, really, what you and your team have done. And this volunteer network, you said you were coming up on 10,000 moves, and this year alone, you'll do what, close to 2,000?
Yeah, about that, about 1,800 moves. That's right.
Wow.
And I'm very proud of that, and I'm really pleased with how the organization. But I need to put it in context. Last year, we did about 1,800 moves or so, or nearly 2,000 moves. But there were 140,000 phone calls to police relating to violence in the home across the country. Were all of them necessarily a full-blown case where she had to leave? No, I'm sure not. But while I'm very proud of our impact, it can't be understated in terms of how the scope of this. There's no community in Canada, or I would say in North America, or maybe the world, where there isn't a form of violence against women in the home. It's sadly something that is just kind of everywhere in our country, rural, urban, rich, poor. There's no particular demographic where it's higher or lower, to be very honest. We've moved women out of homes I will never be able to afford, enormous homes in very wealthy neighborhoods, and they used our service because they were ashamed, and they didn't want to put a big moving truck that's in front of their house. We use unmarked vehicles, we're plain clothes, and she just wanted things done discreetly because he was controlling her credit card and her cell phone calls and her social network. And so she needed to get out quietly, and she used our service for that. And we do that quite frequently.
But give folks that are listening in maybe a sense of where most of your operations are, and also how the organization has evolved, and maybe where you might be going next.
Yeah, sure. So our headquarters is in Toronto, Ontario, but we also operate in Ottawa, Vancouver, Regina, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg, Montreal, St. John, New Brunswick, Fredericton, New Brunswick, Moncton, New Brunswick, Halifax, Nova Scotia, and in those cities we can drive about an hour and a half to 2 hours outside of the city to reach rural communities. So it's not just an urban thing. Most of our clients would come from the larger cities for sure, just out of sheer number. But as you may know, women who are fleeing abuse in an urban setting don't have the same kind of challenges as in a rural setting, right? There's different types of challenges. There's longer distances. There's no public transit. There's less storage in rural communities, and getting police presence can be more difficult. So it's not easier or harder. It's just different, and so our service needs to adapt to that. Fortunately, businesses like Bluebird understand that, and you've been really kind to our clients through us in multiple cities because of your reach nationally, and we're really appreciative of that because it allows us to focus on our clients and not worry about this critical component, because we know that you've got our back and our other storage partners as well. But Bluebird, as you said, similar for you, Bluebird is definitely by hands down our largest corporate partner, and has donated hundreds of thousands of dollars in value that we don't have to go then and fundraise for to pay for at market rate. And that just allows us to turn our attention back to the families that we're serving, and makes our work much, much, much easier.
Yeah, no, that's great. Your growth has been tremendous. We're certainly heavily involved with your organization. I know in Calgary, to some degree in Edmonton, obviously Toronto, Montreal, Halifax, but we're not everywhere. So it's really critical to get other industry partners to kind of step up to provide the storage for your clients. We try to encourage that, certainly either through social media or at our conferences. We've got storage industry conferences, so just trying to educate other operators and get them engaged, because the need is really in every community. From some of the cities you're in, you can reach a lot of the population, which is great within an hour and a half drive. But the need is certainly not decreasing. And
No, it's not. We know that in Canada, at least, a woman or girl is actually killed every 2 days in our country, usually by someone in their home or an intimate partner. So it's not and that's just the worst case of actual femicide. There's countless thousands of less lethal living situations that our clients go through where they need to get out before it gets to that. I know that in our previous talks, Jason, we talked about your staff and what they think of shelter movers. And I'm curious to know, have you noticed a reaction from your team when you tell them, we're going to open a new location and shelter movers is already there or is about to open with you? How do they react? Are they enthusiastic about it, or what's the normal reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think every staff member maybe treats it a little different, but generally the response has been overwhelmingly positive. People feel in some ways very proud to be able to work with your team to help these clients. They take it very seriously, their responsibility to keep their items safe. They understand that the survivor is going through a very difficult time. Um, I think on one occasion, someone was coming out of a shelter. It was a good story. They were getting back on their feet. They were collecting their items, and I think one of our staff got a chance to meet them. And you should have heard him kind of explain, how rewarding that was, just to be able to play a small role in their story and to see them being able to move on to a new life. And yeah, it's an incredible story. Certainly an incredible role that the volunteers and that your staff play in these communities. But our company really has evolved, and we've been inspired, and we've learned a lot from watching what you're doing. We've kind of adopted a new mission statement last year, or really a new vision statement, if you will, to be Canada's most caring company. So I think when we think about, what we do on a daily basis, it can sound a little mundane, right? So we're renting storage units. We're trying, obviously, to turn a profit for our investors. That's sort of table stakes. But if people feel vested in this shared vision to really be compassionate and really try to make a positive impact in the communities that we're in, then I think the work becomes a lot more rewarding, right? You're not just going into the office to rent space for stuff. You're really trying to impact communities and people's lives. So there's a big role to play, whether that's helping nonprofits, whether it's helping small businesses. But I think storage facilities play a more important role than some people may understand in their communities. And I think telling that story is very important for the industry.
Yeah, well said. We've noticed to that point. We've noticed that there's a lot of activity in the market, buying and selling of storage facilities, and your office's generosity means a lot to us. If when someone were to get into the industry to purchase a facility, and then they learned that the previous owner was donating some units to a local charity, I view that personally as you've done 95% of the work for that new owner, that if they care about the community, they want to give back. They don't have to go searching for some new partner or vetting them or checking them out. They've immediately got some goodwill baked right into that model, and they're not paying for it extra. It's coming out of, I'm assuming, some of the surplus space that would already be available in their facility. And so, from a business perspective, I was in the private sector before. Shelter movers, I can understand that, that's kind of an intangible that the staff keeps the staff happy, keeps the community happy, and it's already sort of added to the recipe when you purchase a new facility. So I would view that hopefully as a positive, actually, a real add-on value to anybody looking to get into the storage world.
Yeah, certainly not everyone's familiar with the great work that your team does. So sometimes they just need to, get introduced to the organization and get educated on the importance of it. But certainly keeping that space in place versus, trying to reclaim it is really important for the organization. So, yeah. So Deanie, what do you think about Shelter Movers and our partnership?
Yeah, I think it's incredible. And I'm so proud of you, Mark, and your whole team. I was wondering, just on a personal level, what do your children think of it? I mean, how amazing is it to see their father stepping out to help others? So what are their thoughts? How is it inspiring them?
Well, it's funny. So they were much younger. I've got 3 kids, and 10 years ago they were much younger. So if you ask them what my wife's a lawyer, so if you ask them what their parents did, they'd say, well, Mama's a lawyer and she makes lots of money, and Papa moves boxes. That's what he does. He drives trucks and moves boxes all day. So that's evolved, obviously. I think I've got 2 teenagers now, and I think when they talk about my work, they understand that making enough money to cover your needs in life is definitely needed. You got to get a job, you got to pay your bills and all of that. But then after a while, there's a bit of a threshold, and people start asking themselves, what is there more to my career than, as Jason said, generating investor returns is important and critical. But is there more to my career than that, or could there be more to it? And I hope that if they take anything from what they see me doing, they take that you can still pay the bills and do something you really believe in. And you can have both. You don't have to choose between, living in a cabin somewhere and trying to do good for the world, or being completely heartless and only worrying about making cash all day, and that's all that drives you. You can do both, and we have a very nice, comfortable life. Toronto's not an inexpensive city to live in, and we make do. And my wife works very hard as well. So I want my kids to feel a sense of responsibility. They have a really fortunate life. They don't want for anything, and I think that my hope is that they will see that means that their job is to help other people have that same opportunity and not just sit on it. That would not be in line with our values, and so I hope they take that. So far they all they've got different things they want to do with their lives, but hopefully it'll be in service to other people, and hopefully I can be a small part of why they chose to do that.
That's a great point, Mark. I just think we're blessed that we get to do both, earn a living and also being able to help our communities, trying to balance that as best as possible. But it's certainly very rewarding. I know for Deanie and I, being able to be involved with community organizations, kind of on the front lines with our teams, and also be profitable. I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. So with some of the challenges, obviously budget wise, that your organization always is going to face, with the great need from your clients, what do you need from the industry? What types of resources? I mean, we've obviously talked a lot about storage, but there's a lot of expenses that go into one of these moves. What can people do to get involved?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I've been raising money now for, as I said, almost a decade for this organization, and these past 6 months have been hands down the most difficult months our charity has seen. There's a lot happening in the world, and donor behavior has changed, and donations are being asked for from all kinds of different directions. So I would say it's an important question now in particular, because we've seen a decrease in the financial gifts that we get from our donors, not because they don't believe in our service, but because they're being asked to give money, other geopolitical issues around the world, that it's just they're giving, but they're giving less. And so this is the time in the life of Shelter Movers where partnerships like ours with Bluebird mean even more, because you've been so trustworthy and so steadfast in your support, and that means more than you may know. In terms of what the industry can offer, sure, as you said, storage and reliable storage is critical. But as you guys have done before, you've had internal campaigns where you've had point of sale donation opportunities at your locations. You've had internal campaigns with your staff and sort of pumping them up and reminding them of the importance of generating donations, and that's moving families in their local town, which I think means a lot to them and to us as well. And then there's access to networks, and I really can't underestimate that. When everybody knows somebody, we may not all have a rich uncle who can cut $1 million check, but we may know somebody who's, who owns a small business as well, or who's willing to host a supper at their house. We've had a lot of that recently, where people said, I'll call 20 friends, 10 couples, and I'll have them over at my house. I'll pay for the supper, and then and have Shelter Movers come in and talk about the service. And that can be, a very elaborate, fancy supper weekend at a cottage, or it can be a nice, quiet evening at your house. And both of them are really valuable to us. You don't have to be super wealthy to do it, and it's a way for us to kind of socialize what we do. And so I would look to business owners in particular who have a vendor base or a client base that they want to engage on something more than just business. It's obviously a good business move, and it has built-in networking and relationship building opportunities there, but it's also beneficial to our clients because it generates donations and discussion about our work. So yeah, so being the steady availability of donated storage, some in-house or point of sale donation campaigns, and then the use of your own personal or your own professional network, your social media platforms to go on sheltermovers.com or check us out at Shelter Movers on all of our platforms to reshare that. Something I've noticed with Shelter Movers is, I appreciate your comment about our growth. I'm really pleased with how fast we've grown as well, and I think it's a testament to the need for our service. But it surprises me how often people have never heard of Shelter Movers. That they've talked. It's been in their city for almost a decade, and I'm sure it's probably helped someone they know. But our brand strength hasn't kept up with our operational strength. And so this chance to speak with you today, on online is really critical, and getting the word out is part of that. So people know they can trust us and they can use us and they can fund us.
Absolutely. I'll continue to work on some ideas with you, Mark, for ways to raise some more funds. Deanie, you want to talk about some upcoming events they've got?
Yes. So, speaking of raising money, fundraising, you have an important gala coming up, I see. So, tell us about that. Sounds like it is in November 7th. It's at the Ritz-Carlton. That'll be nice. Called A Moving Affair. So, tell us a little bit about that and how people can buy tickets.
Yeah, we started a moving affair in our very first year. It was basically my wife wrangling the legal community in Toronto to come out and show their support. I think we made about $40,000 net, and I thought we were millionaires. I mean, it was we were funding it ourselves personally, so that was a big deal. Now our target is significantly higher. I think you probably add a zero to that and a little bit more. But our goal with a moving affair is it's our signature national gala. This is there'll be about 350, 400 people at the Ritz-Carlton. If you know Toronto, the Ritz is one of the nicer locations in town. It really is some very, very high quality food. We have some incredible musical acts that will be joining. And most importantly, we've invited a survivor to come and tell his story. And I won't give it away, but I'll just give you a bit of a teaser. The gentleman's name is Paulo Leon. And Paulo's Brazilian-born marketing strategist. He's been here in Toronto for many years. And Paulo is going to speak on November 7th about from a perspective that we haven't very often seen. And that's of a young boy who had to watch his mother go through something awful and had to leave with his mom when he was not a little baby. I mean, old enough to understand what was going on. And when I think about Paulo's story, I think about some of the first moves that we ever did. One of them was with a client, and her son was about 10 years old, or no, maybe 8 years old, even younger at the time, old enough, like a little kid. And I think about, we're coming up on 10 years now, and I think about him now, who that boy might be. He's turning 18 this year, presumably. And I think about what direction his life took after that night that we got him out 10 years ago. Did he become a different man? Hopefully, did he view his mother as the hero that she is for doing that for her and him? What life direction did he take? And I think about Paulo's keynote discussion on November 7th, and I'm wondering if there will be some echoes of that, because Paulo's this very successful, very kind, very generous adult man in his 40s, 50s, whatever, and he's contributing to society in such a positive way. And Shelter Movers was not there for him and his mother when they left that home in Brazil, but they got out. And so it's really a story of hope that I'm excited for people to hear. Of course, we'll have a live auction. We have kind of wild live auctions. It's become a bit of a thing at these events where people get really excited about making a donation, but they're excited about getting something back for it. And so we have very nice trips to beautiful locations in different parts of the world, and that gets people's attention. And usually it's a space enough for multiple families to come together, and so people get excited about that. There'll be a silent auction, of course, available online through our Auctria platform. But there are tables still available, and there are still sponsorship opportunities available, and that again is at sheltermovers.com. That our guests can go and have a look. But it is really our main fundraiser for the year, and that will allow us to move thousands of families. And so it'll be a good time. We'll raise some money, but it's also about talking about what we can do together to make families safer across Canada, because the benefit is not just for Toronto, it's for all of our chapters.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much for all that you're doing. And I will make a commitment as our marketing manager to share out more, and I will share out the information about the gala. We're here to support you, Mark. We're grateful for all that you do for survivors. So
Appreciate it.
for your time.
Thank you. And likewise to you. I can't say enough that the example that you're setting in the industry and broadly for the industry is real. I speak with donors and corporate sponsors all the time, and the fact that you've stood by us for this many years and that you're making a really large offer to help, and you're really setting the bar for other businesses, and you deserve a lot of credit for that. So thank you.
It's an honor.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
We'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.